The night was alive with thunder. Rain hammered against the glass towers of the Estrella Royale Hotel, each drop striking like a warning from the heavens. But inside, no one cared. The lobby shimmered like a kingdom stolen from the stars. Crystal. Chandeliers hung above, glowing like stolen suns, scattering light across marble floors, polished so smooth they mirrored the very souls walking over them. Music from a string quartet floated through the air, delicate yet arrogant, as though even sound itself had been trained to serve the wealthy. Perfume mingled with the sharp bite of expensive cigars, a haze of excess that clung to every corner. The elites had gathered. Politicians with sly smiles that hid centuries of betrayal. Heirs of dynasties who had never worked a day in their lives, their pride heavier than the fortunes they wasted. Businessmen whose power was measured not in kindness, but in how many lives they could destroy with the stroke of a pen. Women draped in glittering jewels, each diamond heavier than conscience, each pearl bought with silent suffering. They laughed, they whispered, they clinked glasses as if the world outside, the hungry, the broken, the forgotten, did not exist. And among them, a janitor. The squeak of a cartwheel cut through the music for just a moment, only to vanish. Beneath the tide of conversation, a mop dragged slowly across the marble, its dull cloth spreading water into invisible streaks. The man pushing it moved with the quiet rhythm of one long accustomed to being overlooked. His coveralls were faded, patched in places where the fabric had worn thin. His shoulders slumped forward, his head bowed low, his steps cautious, almost. Apologetic dot to the glittering crowd, he was nothing. An invisible shadow in the glow of their wealth. No one cared. No one looked. But if they had, if even one of them had lifted their gaze long enough to truly see, they would have noticed something unmistakable. The sharp line of his jaw, the determined curve of his brow, the fire smoldering beneath his lowered eyes. For this was no ordinary janitor. This was Cristiano Ronaldo, the legend, the icon, the man whose name had thundered in stadiums across the globe, whose goals had electrified nations, whose very presence on the pitch had rewritten history. And yet tonight he walked unseen. Tonight he came stripped of medals, stripped of applause, stripped of glory. Tonight he came as no one. The Estrella Royale was built not just to house the powerful, but to worship them. Every column, every chandelier, every gilded frame was a monument to pride. And in that temple of arrogance, Ronaldo's silence was an insult. He pushed his cart across the marble. It squeaked like a ticking clock. Every sound magnified the fact that he didn't belong. A waiter in a crisp uniform nearly collided with him, sneering as if dirt had stained his silver tray. "Watch it, old man," he muttered, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. Laughter followed. It began as a ripple, a smirk here, a chuckle there, until it spread like fire. Eyes turned toward the janitor, eyes that saw not a man, but a target. The night manager was the first to step forward. Gerald Hoffman, a man whose suit was sharper than his soul. His tie was blood red, his shoes polished to mirrors, and his smile had all the warmth of a blade. For decades, he had ruled this hotel like a petty king, feeding on humiliation as if it were fine wine. "You missed a spot," he said, pointing with a gold-ringed finger to a section of floor already spotless. His voice was silk stretched over venom. "Do you ever do anything right, janitor? Or are you just here to decorate the place with failure?" The laughter grew louder. Champagne glasses tilted. Diamonds sparkled as heads turned to enjoy the spectacle. To the rich, cruelty was entertainment. A woman in pearls leaned close to her companion, her voice cutting through the noise. "Look at his hands," she whispered, eyes narrowed. "So rough, probably hasn't touched clean water in weeks." Her friend smirked. "Probably sleeps in the gutter. Animals shouldn't be allowed in places like this." Their laughter rang out. sharp as breaking glass. Ronaldo lowered his head, his mop sliding across the marble in slow, steady movements. To the crowd, it looked like defeat. To him, it was patience. The humiliation deepened. Gerald lifted a bottle of wine, its label French, its price enough to feed a village for a year. With deliberate mockery, he tilted it. Red liquid spilled across the floor like blood on snow, spreading in uneven rivers across the marble. "Clean it," Gerald commanded, his voice booming in the vaulted ceiling. "On your hands and knees. Show us what you're good for." Phones appeared, screens lit up. The elite leaned in with hungry eyes, eager to record another man's shame. This was their sport, their entertainment. Ronaldo knelt slowly. His hands touched the cold marble. To them, it was submission. To him, it was the calm before the storm. And as the wine seeped around his fingers, his eyes hidden until now flickered with something the crowd did not notice. A storm, a reckoning, a fire older than their wealth, stronger than their arrogance. They thought they had broken him, but they had only awakened something they would soon. Wish had stayed asleep. The laughter swelled in the Estrella Royale lobby, a cruel symphony echoing off marble walls. But then something changed. It began subtly. The chandelier lights flickered, once, twice, before steadying again. The guests glanced upward, murmuring, before dismissing it. Yet the air had shifted. The temperature dropped, faintly at first, then sharper, as if a cold wind had slipped through cracks in the world itself. Champagne glasses on polished tables trembled. The crystal stems vibrated with a strange frequency, humming a song that no one could understand. Ronaldo's hands lingered on the marble, his fingers brushing something hidden beneath his cart. A small device, metallic, pulsing with a faint blue light. Symbols etched into its surface seemed to shift when stared at directly, flowing like liquid language written before time itself. He rose slowly, not as a janitor, not as a servant, but as something else. The mop fell from his hand, landing with a dull echo that carried through the hall like a gunshot. The guests turned, startled by the sound. Their laughter thinned, their smiles faltered. And then, the shadows began to move. At first, it looked like a trick of the light. But no, the silhouettes on the marble stretched longer, bending away from their owners, reaching out like dark fingers clawing toward their feet. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Phones wavered in unsteady hands, their cameras capturing distortions. They could not explain. What is happening? Someone stammered. The grandfather clock in the corner ticked faster, its pendulum swinging with unnatural urgency. The gilded fountain at the lobby center gurgled, its cascading water suddenly roaring like a storm. The carved stone nymphs seemed to weep. And in the midst of it all stood Ronaldo. His coveralls shimmered, dissolving like mist, revealing not the broken shell they mocked, but the form of a man who carried storms in his veins. His presence bent the air, the light, even the sound around him. He was no longer invisible. He was undeniable. Gerald Hoffman, ever the predator, stepped forward, his voice breaking with forced confidence. "What is this? Some kind of trick?" But the words rang hollow, because the hotel itself had changed. Steel barriers slammed down over every exit with the finality of coffin lids. The sound reverberated like thunder, rattling glasses, shaking chandeliers. Emergency lights bathed the lobby in crimson, painting every face in the color of guilt. And then Ronaldo spoke. "You thought this was your kingdom," he said, his voice deep, resonant, carrying weight that shattered glasses on nearby tables. "But this place has been nothing more than a marketplace of souls, built on cruelty, maintained by silence." Screens descended from hidden panels in the ceiling, flickering to life. At first, static, then documents, bank statements, phone, recordings, videos, Every hidden crime they thought buried was now displayed for all to see. Gasps erupted. Faces drained of color. Some tried to look away, but their bodies would not move. The marble floor glowed faintly beneath their feet, as if the very stone had waited for this moment. They were no longer guests. They were prisoners, and the judgment they had bought their whole lives to escape was finally here. Silence fell inside the Estrella Royale, not the kind of silence that pressed on the chest, that made breathing heavy, that carried the weight of something final. The guests, once arrogant gods of wealth, were frozen in place. Not by fear, not by choice, by something far older, far stronger. Their eyes darted, their throats tightened, but their bodies refused to move. Champagne glasses hovered mid-air. Laughter trapped half-formed on painted lips. Time itself had shackled them. Ronaldo stood at the center of the lobby, no longer a shadow, no longer a servant. His very presence bent the atmosphere, pulling gravity around him like a cloak. Power, he said, his voice low, echoing like a cathedral bell. You worship it, you twist it, you use it to step on those who cannot fight back. Tonight, you will learn what power truly is. Screens above continued to flash. Secret recordings, signed deals, hidden crimes. Images of villages swallowed by greed, families left in ruin, children broken by hunger while these people feasted. Each revelation was another nail, hammered into the coffins of their reputations. One politician struggled to speak. His voice cracked, desperate. Please, you don't understand. I had no choice. But Ronaldo's gaze cut him down like a blade. You always had a choice. You chose yourself. The marble beneath their feet pulsed, glowing brighter, as if the hotel itself was alive, judging alongside him. Statues in the corners seemed to turn their faces, eyes of stone watching. The condemned Gerald Hoffman, the manager, the king of cruelty, was the only one who found his voice. You can't do this. You're just a footballer. A man who kicks a ball. What gives you the right to? His words died, because Ronaldo stepped closer, and with every step, the air thickened. Chandeliers swayed as if bowing. The walls groaned. Marble veins glowing like embers. I am not here as the player you cheered for, Ronaldo said. His voice deepened, layered, almost inhuman. I am here as the mirror you cannot break, the reflection of every soul you destroyed. A scream pierced the hall, not from a throat, but from the screens. A woman's voice, begging for help, cut through the air. The crowd recognized her. They knew her face. She had been one of their victims. Others followed. Dozens of voices. Hundreds. A chorus of the forgotten. The screens lit up brighter, flooding the hall with light until the elites trembled like insects exposed under a flame. And then judgment fell. The walls closed in. The chandeliers crashed down, shattering into storms of glass. Fire roared from the fountain, water turning to steam. The frozen elites found their bodies breaking, their wealth useless, their diamonds scattering into the dust. When it ended, there was no applause, no laughter, no music. Only silence. Cristiano Ronaldo stood among the ruins, the storm in his eyes finally calm. He picked up his mop, placed it gently on the cart, and pushed it toward the exit. To the world outside, he was still just a janitor, leaving his shift. But to those who had witnessed the night inside the Estrella Royale, he was judgment itself.